In this video, we will cover the series Powerpuff Girls from beginning to end. The Powerpuff Girls has a total of 6 seasons, starting in 1998 and ending in 2005, with a total of 78 episodes. The show follows the adventures of 3 superhero girls, Blossom, Bubbles, and Buttercup, who protect the city of Townsville from criminals like Mojo Jojo, him, the Gang Green Gang, and Princess Morbucks. So, without further ado, let's get started. Firstly, we're gonna talk about the person who started everything, Professor Utonium. So, this guy is the science nerd responsible for creating the Powerpuff Girls. Currently, he's a teacher of quantum physics at the Townsville Research Center, but he wasn't always the geek that he is now. Back in 1950, Utonium was a troublesome kid who had no interest in science. However, Mojo Jojo from the future arrived in that time to kill him so that the Powerpuff Girls would never be born. However, when the 3 girls from the future rescued him, he turned to science for an explanation. This led him to become the scientist that he is today. Now, several years into the future, Professor was an accomplished scientist who had a pet monkey named Mojo. Mojo and Professor were very close, and Utonium would love him like his own child. However, one day, Professor was adding ingredients to create a perfect little girl until an accident led to the addition of chemical X in the recipe. This led to an explosion that created 3 superhero girls, Blossom, Bubbles, and Buttercup. However, the explosion also affected Mojo, and his simple simian brain began to grow abnormally. Even though he became super intelligent after the incident, he felt overshadowed by the girls. With their superhuman strength, Mojo's brilliance went unnoticed. Soon enough, the girls had all of Utonium's attention, so Mojo had no choice but to put on a disguise and destroy the girls to reclaim his role in the family. And this is how the infamous Mojo Jojo came into being. Now serving as the main antagonist in the show, Mojo spends his days plotting revenge against the girls from his volcano lair. However, Mojo isn't the only villain on the show. There are some other notable characters that cause trouble throughout the entire series. Firstly, we have Princess Morbucks, a rich, spoiled girl who wants to have similar powers to the Powerpuff Girls. With her father's riches, she manages to buy a superhero suit with a jetpack, but she ends up causing more harm than good, which surely annoys our superhero girls. Eventually, she becomes obsessed with power to the point that she starts attacking the Powerpuff Girls, which is why she's sent to jail in the same episode she debuts in. Next up, we have one of the most terrifying and my absolute favorite villain of the show, called him. His real name is unknown, but it is done on purpose to fuel his mysterious and scary character. Anyways, while other villains use brute strength or money to stop the girls, he uses psychological methods to get what he wants. For example, in the episode Octi Evil, he possesses Bubbles' stuffed octopus toy called Octi. He uses some kind of power to talk to Bubbles and manipulates her into fighting her own sisters. The arguing gets so bad that the girls become each other's enemies. When Bubbles realizes Octi's true identity, it's already too late because Octi has become a giant monster by then. She heads on to fight it on her own and is defeated. Well, until her sisters hear her screams and come to the rescue. And then, of course, there is Fuzzy Lumpkins, who's a large pink bear who started plotting revenge against the girls when he lost a jam contest that they were judging. He created a meat gun that would turn anything into meat and planned to eat the entire population of Townsville. Luckily, Bubbles was there to give him a good old beating and sent him back into hibernation. We also have the Gang Green Gang, which consists of Ace, Snake, Grubber, Big Billy, and Lil Arturo. Together, they're a group of trouble-making punks, each with their own set of abilities. In the episode Butter Crush, Buttercup develops a crush on their leader Ace, which he uses to manipulate her into putting her sisters in trouble. Eventually, his true colors come out and the whole gang gets an ass-whooping by her. The show also introduces us to the male counterparts of the Powerpuff Girls. So, one day, Mojo Jojo's relentless mischief in Townsville prompts him to concoct a devious plan to create male counterparts to the Powerpuff Girls, the Rowdy Rough Boys. Using unconventional ingredients like snips, snails, and puppy dog's tails, along with a dose of chemical X from a contaminated prison toilet, Mojo successfully brings the Rowdy Rough Boys to life. He convinces them to take on the Powerpuff Girls, who have previously thwarted his schemes. A fierce battle ensues between the two superpowered trios, with the Rowdy Rough Boys initially gaining the upper hand due to their ruthless tactics and disregard for collateral damage. However, the Powerpuff Girls choose a different approach for the rematch. Instead of simply using violence, they use their charm and plant kisses on their male counterparts, causing the Rowdy Rough Boys to explode into their basic components, thus ending their threat. Sometimes it gets lonely for our beloved professor, and his longing for companionship prompts him to date Ima Goodlady, a seemingly sweet woman that he meets at the supermarket. The girls set up a date for him, and after a successful night out, the professor introduces Ima as the new household helper. However, once alone with the girls, Ima's true bossy and controlling nature emerges. She forces them to clean and adhere to strict rules, even manipulating the situation to frame them for breaking curfew. Suspicion grows when Ima sneaks out of the house, and shortly after, the Powerpuff Girls receive a call about a theft committed by the mysterious Sedusa, leading them to connect the dots. They unmask Ima as Sedusa and engage in a fight, exposing her villainous intentions. In the end, Utonium apologizes to the girls for not believing in them. Now, you've got your all-classic bad guys, and then you've got the Amoeba Boys, the kind of villains who can't even successfully pull off a kitten rescue. So what's their bright idea? Well, they've decided to take lessons from the Powerpuff Girls, the A-list heroes of the town, on how to be real villains. Now, mind you, these guys couldn't steal candy from a baby without getting caught. But, lo and behold, the girls actually agree to teach them the art of villainy. And what's their grand heist plan? Well, a bank robbery, of course. Long story short, the girls help them rob a bank and get arrested for it. But just as they're about to confess in court, the Amoeba Boys swoop in to claim the credit, leaving everyone scratching their heads in the good old Townsville fashion. Because, you know, in a city where crime and chaos go hand in hand, even the bumbling villains get their chance to shine. Alright, that's enough about the villains. Let's talk about the girls now. Sugar, spice, and everything nice. These were the ingredients the professor added to the recipe for the girls. So naturally, each one of them represents one of the girls. For sugar, we have Bubbles, the most childish, sweet, and joyful among the three. But don't let the appearance fool you. Bubbles can be very scary when she needs to be. For example, in the episode Bubble Vicious, frustrated by her cute and less tough image, especially in the eyes of the professor, she takes matters into her own hands during a training exercise. Given an easy opponent, her fury drives her to sneak into the lab and confront an extreme level 11 test where she fearlessly defeats a horde of monstrous foes. However, this newfound aggression leads to a destructive rampage in Townsville, causing her sisters concern for her safety. Meanwhile, arch-nemesis Mojo Jojo kidnaps Bubbles, trying to exploit her emotions to lure her sisters into a trap. Despite Mojo's efforts, Bubbles stands strong, defies his attempts to make her cry, and ultimately defeats him all on her own, earning her sister's respect and the recognition that she truly deserves as a formidable Powerpuff Girl. However, the full extent of her powers is truly still a mystery. In one episode, Bubbles is knocked in the head by Mojo, which kind of turns her psycho as she claims to be Mojo Jojo herself. As the girls fight her, she can be seen letting out a huge red lightning attack, which is strong enough to easily defeat Blossom and Buttercup. Now, this might mean that she is the strongest among her sisters and is only hindered by her cute persona. Buttercup, known as the toughest fighter of the Powerpuff Girls, adds a dose of spice to the trio. Her fierce and easily provoked nature makes her the group's muscle, but it also leads to moments of recklessness and stubbornness. Beneath her tough exterior, Buttercup does have a softer side, as seen in the episode Cover Up, where we discover her obsession with a beloved green blanket. Clutching this blanket grants her the confidence to become an even better fighter. Additionally, Buttercup possesses a unique talent. She can curl her tongue, a skill that sets her apart from her sisters Blossom and Bubbles, as well as the rest of Townsville. And Blossom, the self-proclaimed leader of the Powerpuff Girls, brings the everything nice aspect to the trio. She's the level-headed and responsible strategist of the group. However, even Blossom has her moments of imperfection. imperfections. In the episode A Very Special Blossom, a darker side of her character is revealed when she resorts to stealing the Pro Excellence 2000 golf clubs for the professor on Father's Day. For her first and only offense, Blossom is sentenced to 200 hours of community service. In the world of Townsville, there are some regular folks too. First up, we've got the mayor, who's pretty much on speed dial for the Powerpuff Girls whenever there's trouble. But sometimes he's got this knack for calling them in for the silliest stuff, like opening a stubborn pickle jar. Then we have Cerebellum, who's the mayor's trusty secretary and deputy. They say that she's the real brains behind the mayor, and honestly, it's kinda hard to argue with that. She's the one handling all the serious stuff, while the mayor, well, let's just say he's got other talents. Oh, and you can't miss the fact that the mayor's got a wife who's basically a spitting image of himself. But for some reason, the mayor's always got his eyes locked on Mr. Bellum. Oh, and who could forget Miss Keene? She's the teacher at Pokey Oaks Kindergarten, the place where the Powerpuff Girls go to school when they're not saving the city. Miss Keene is patient, kind, and super protective of her little students. She and Professor Utonium, the girl's creator, used to date back in the day, but a cat-related argument ended up leading to their breakup. Small world, huh? The funny thing is, Miss Keene, the professor, and Cerebellum all went to school together way before the Powerpuff Girls were a thing. So yeah, there's a whole bunch of history going on behind the scenes in Townsville. We also have Daddy Morebucks, who's the father of Princess Morebucks. He is usually seen sitting on a fancy chair in front of the fireplace of his living room, usually just giving tons of money to his daughter to spoil her, but his biggest role is when he buys the entire city of Townsville. Princess Morebucks becomes the mayor of Townsville and uses her newfound power to make crime legal, putting the city in chaos as criminals run rampant. The Powerpuff Girls' house is also robbed, leaving them frustrated and powerless. However, they realize a loophole in Morebucks' decree that allows them to legally steal her belongings. Morebucks, after getting robbed herself, begs the girls to retrieve her stuff, but they remind her of the legalities of the situation. Eventually, the girls make a deal with Morebucks. They return her belongings in exchange for her relinquishing control of Townsville back to the mayor. Okay, so before we proceed any further, have you guys ever wondered why Miss Bellum's face is never shown in the entire series? Additionally, Daddy Morebucks' face is always cut off as well. One could simply argue that it was a character design, but I believe there is some artistic reasoning to it. First, let's talk about Miss Bellum. Now, we all know the mayor has the hots for her, despite having his own wife, I might add. And if you take a look at her character design, I mean the visible portion of her body, you would immediately think that she's built hot. Combining that with the fact that the mayor drools over her, we can assume that what we see of Miss Bellum is from the mayor's perspective, who has his eyes set on her body and body alone. The mayor doesn't care what her face looks like, and neither should the audience. So, in conclusion, I think her face is hidden to emphasize that the mayor sees her as an attractive body rather than an actual person. Secondly, the same concept applies to Daddy Morebucks. As we see in many episodes, his role can be dumbed down to an extremely rich dad who spoils his daughter with money. His face is never shown because the princess never really cares what her father looks like. She only cares about the fact that she gets whatever she wants from the money he gives her. This is also highlighted when the money is emphasized with a plain background and the shiny dollar signs, further proving that we're seeing him from the princess's perspective. Okay, anyways, let's get back to the show. In one episode, the girls eagerly anticipate their vacation to the Bahamas as they finish school. They engage in a super speed race home, but accidentally cross a border between two time periods, causing them to leap forward 50 years into the future. In this dystopian future, they discover that Townsville has turned into a barren wasteland, and its inhabitants, including the mayor, Miss Bellum, and Miss Keene, have all aged and gone insane. Him reveals that their time travel led to the world's destruction, causing them immense guilt. So now a group of broken, aged children blames the girls for abandoning them, further adding to their distress. The girls manage to return to the present where Townsville is safe, but they decide not to go on their vacation, as they feel responsible for the future they witnessed. This right here has to be one of the darkest and most ominous episodes of the entire show, and to think that this show was made for kids. That's some really spooky stuff. Him seethes with anger as he watches video clips of the Powerpuff Girls effortlessly defeating various villains. His sinister excitement grows as he stumbles upon something intriguing. The following day, the girls triumph over a horde of monsters, but an enormous outcropping suddenly emerges from the ground, revealing the Rowdy Rough Boys. Despite the shock of their unexpected return, the girls simply can't help but tease the boys about their new hairstyles before engaging in a fierce battle. However, the boys have developed immunity to their kisses due to a cootie vaccination administered by him, and they grew in size and power. Buttercup manages to make one of the boys bite his tongue, causing him to shrink. The girls quickly realize that embarrassing the boys threatens their masculinity and gradually diminishes their size. Overwhelmed by an audience of Townsville's notorious villains, including Mojo Jojo, Princess Morbucks, Fuzzy Lumpkins, the Gangrene Gang, Sedusa, him, and Amoeba Boys, the Powerpuff Girls yearn for respite from the endless battles. A gnome emerges from a raindrop-imbued crack in the ground, promising to eradicate all evil in exchange for their superpowers. Although initially hesitant, the girls do agree, and the gnome uses their powers to vanquish the villains, creating an apparent utopia in Townsville where he's worshipped. The professor warns of the consequences, and when the gnome turns malevolent, the girls regain their powers and confront him, defeating him in a final battle. The gnome realizes he's become the very evil he aimed to eliminate and vanishes into oblivion, restoring Townsville to its previous state. The girls then teach the townspeople the importance of balance and taking action to create a better world. In the final episode of the show, amidst the excitement of Professor Utonium's party, Bubbles grooms herself to be the prettiest girl. Her joy soon turns to horror when she discovers Octi's mutilated leg under her bed. Distraught, she faints, but later becomes determined to find Octi's assailant. During the party, she suspects each of her family members, and even Miss Keen. But the true culprit is revealed to be Mojo Jojo, who demands 1,000 gallons of Chemical X for Octi's return. However, it's disclosed that the professor accidentally damaged Octi while cleaning, and Bubbles had already found it before he could fix it. He patches Octi up, leading to Bubbles' forgiveness, and the show ends on that very wholesome note.